Welcome children to your English class. Here we are going to take chapter 3rd, Deep Water from your Flamingo book. This story is an excerpt taken from the book of Men and Mountains written by William O. Douglas. Here he is sharing his childhood experience and about his fear of water. The author, he also had the phobia about water. So here he is going now to have the discussion about his fear about water and how he overcome his fear with his strong determination and hard work. Let's now know about his experience. In this chapter, William Douglas has recalled one of his bitter childhood experience. He has talked about his fear of water and how he overcame it. The story reveals how he had developed the fear about the water when he was just 3 or 4 years old. His father had taken him to a beach in California. There he was terrified of the sheer force of the waves. The waves knocked him down, leaving him breathless. His father loved to see the condition of the boy, but the boy was terrorized. It was the first time the boy started hating and fearing from the water. When he was 10 or 11 years of age, he decided that he should learn swimming. There was a Yakima River in his city, but more often there were heard the drowning cases. So it was not safe to learn swimming in that river. Finally, he decided that he should learn swimming at the YMCA pool of his city, which was quite safe place, as it had only 2 or 3 feet deep the shallow end and 9 feet deep the other end. The drop in this pool was quite gradual. So he collected a pair of water wings and went to the pool. At first he hated to walk naked into the water, as he felt quite hesitant to show his thin legs to the people. Though the sight of the water revived the unpleasant memories in his mind, but he was determined to overcome his fear of water. He watched other boys paddling on water with their water wings. He tried to learn by following them. He did this 2 or 3 times on different days. And then he was just beginning to feel comfortable in the water when the misadventure happened with him. That day when he went to the pool, there was no one else. So he sat on the side of the pool to wait for others to come, as he was feeling quite timid to enter into the water all alone. Suddenly there came a big muscular boy of 18 years of age. First of all, the boy commented on the thin body of Douglas, and then, without waiting for any reply, he picked Douglas and threw directly into the 9 feet of the pool. As Douglas was unaware how to swim, so he started landing in a sitting position. He was unaware how to do the swimming, so he started landing in a sitting position. He swallowed water and went straight at once to the bottom. He was, though, frightened, but not frightened out of his senses. He made a planning to save his life. He thought when his feet would touch the bottom, he would make a big jump upwards and then would come to the surface and lie flat over the surface and then paddle to the edge of the pool. However, the 9 feet depth of the pool seemed more like 90 to the poor boy. He was totally out of his breath when his feet touched the bottom. Still, with all his strength, he made a string upwards. He came up slower than he had planned. When he opened his eyes, he saw nothing but water and water everywhere. He started fearing from the water. Next, he felt suffocated and tried to yell, but no sound came out from his frozen throat. However, he jumped but came up gradually. Fear had seized his mind and he was nearly drowned. His efforts to save himself were going in vain. No one came there to save his life. He tried to breathe, but every time he swallowed the water. Even he tried to bring his legs up, but they hung like dead weights. A great force of the water was taking him inside the bottom of the pool. A great force of the water, like electricity, was pulling him to the bottom of the pool. He had lost all his breath. His lungs were paining and his head was beating too. But again he remembered his strategy. When he opened his eyes, next he saw nothing but water with a yellow glow. A sheer, stark terror seized his mind. The terror that knew no understanding. Terror that knew no control. A terror that only the one who was experiencing he could only understand. He was again shaking under water. Only his heart and the pounding head was saying that he was still alive. Once again, Douglas reminded about his planning, that he had to jump when he would touch the bottom. But again his jump went into the vein. He was still under the water. The stark terror took him more tightly in its hold now. Each time out of his 3 attempts to reach the surface only bring him within inches to the surface. But every time he sank down again. Douglas has described how fear immobilized him, made his limbs dead and unresponsive, till he finally succumbed and fainted. The stark terror took him more tightly in its hold. His fear paralyzed his body and mind. His arms and legs had stopped moving. He started now shivering with the fear. He tried to call for his mother, but nothing happened. Suddenly, has described how the fear immobilized him, making his limbs dead and unresponsive. His arms and legs stopped moving. He started now trembling with fright. The fear paralyzed his body and mind. He tried to call for his mother, but nothing worked. Suddenly, Douglas found himself coming out of the water. Again, he sucked for the air and got water. But once again, he started going down for the 3rd time. Finally, he decided he should stop all these useless efforts. His body went limp. A blackness took over his brain, which along with wiped out fear and the terror. Suddenly, everything turned to be quiet and peaceful, as he was not thinking, he was not panicking. Douglas felt as he was wrapped in his mother's arms. He was in the impression that he was going to die. Then he fainted. The next thing what he remembers about the day was that when he came into the senses, he found himself lying on his stomach beside the pool. He was vomiting. The same boy who had thrown him into the pool had taken him out, and the people standing around, they were scolding for the boy for his misdeed. But he replied he was just kidding and never knew that Douglas didn't know how to swim. Douglas could not eat that night. He was feeling weak. He trembled and cried on his bed throughout the night. Due to this misadventure, he never went back to the pool. He started fearing the water. Whenever he went near the water, the terror that had seized him in the pool would return to haunt him. This fear paralyzed his mind and body. He lived with this fear of water for many years. This haunting anxiety ruined all his fishing trips and deprived him of the joy of canoeing, boating, and swimming. He tried his best to overcome this fear, but it did not let go of him. Finally, Douglas decided he must overcome this fear of water, so he decided to hire the services of an instructor to master the swimming skills. The instructor took him to the pool and started giving him practice 5 days a week, an hour each day. He split his practice to the boy into the 3 legs. Initially, he started by putting a belt round his waist and attached the rope, which went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. The instructor held the other end of the rope. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope, and thus Douglas went under the water and then went back and forth across the pool. Thus he did this practice hour after hour, day after day, till he began to get back his confidence. Each time when the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope and Douglas, when he was going under the water, some of the old terror returned and many times froze his legs. But gradually each time when the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope, some of the old terror returned and froze his legs. So it took him 3 months to get over this fear. Then in the next part, the instructor taught him how to inhale and exhale while staying in the water. Then in the next leg, he taught him how to put his face under the water and exhale, and how to raise his nose and inhale. He repeated this exercise also hundreds of times, and then gradually he started shedding some of his old fear. Then in the next part of the training, he was taught how to kick his legs. He did this practice also for the weeks, and gradually his legs were relaxed. Thus, piece by piece, he built a swimmer. When he had perfected each piece, he put together all these training steps into an integrated whole. And thus, with his willpower and practice, from October till April, the instructor, he declared finally that he had turned to be now a swimmer. Thus, with the training from the month of October till April, the instructor built a swimmer out of the Douglas. Though the instructor was satisfied with the progress of the boy, but Douglas was not still confident about his swimming. This happened when he did swimming alone in the middle of the pool. The tiny remnants of the old terror returned. But now he learned the way to tackle this fear. He started personifying the fear. He started assuming now this fear is not a feeling, but some person to whom he could challenge. So he started challenging the terror by asking what it could do to him. So after saying so, he jumped. After saying so, he jumped into the pool, and then the fear fled away. After thinking so, he jumped into the water and thus started overcoming the tiny vestiges of the old terror. But still, he was not satisfied. Then he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire and swam 2 miles across the lake. When he was in the middle of the lake, he put his face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. The old sensation came back to haunt him. But this time, Douglas was quite strong. He personified and challenged the terror again and swam on. Yet still, he had some residual doubts to test whether he had lost all his fear and the panic. So, Douglas went up to the Triton to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to meet Glacier, and camped in the high meadows by the side of the warm lake there. There he dived into it and swam across, and was overjoyed to learn that he had at last conquered his fear of water. Yet still, he had residual doubts to test whether he had lost all the vestiges of panic and the fear. He went up to the Triton to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to meet Glacier, and there he camped in the high meadows by the side of the warm lake. There he dived into it and swam across, and was overjoyed to learn that at last he had conquered his fear of water. To the author, the experience had a deeper meaning. He said, only those who have known the stark terror and have ever conquered it, they can only appreciate the reaction and the strength of Douglas, how he overcome his fear of water. He explains that there is always peace and calmness in death, but it is the fear of death that crippled a person. Here he quotes the words of President Roosevelt, who said, all we have to fear is fear itself. As he had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce, he said, the will to live, it should be always intense. That would surely make you victorious in all the battles of life. As he had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce, he suggests that the will to live this life should be always grown in intense. That will surely tread your way to be the winner in the life. Yet still, he had some residual doubts to test whether he had lost all his fear and the panic. So, Douglas went up to the Triton to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to meet Glacier, and camped in the high meadows by the side of the warm lake there. There he dived into it and swam across, and was overjoyed to learn that he had at last conquered his fear of water. Yet still, he had residual doubts to test whether he had lost all the vestiges of panic and the fear. He went up to the Triton to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to meet Glacier, and there he camped in the high meadows by the side of the warm lake. There he dived into it and swam across, and was overjoyed to learn that at last he had conquered his fear of water. To the author, the experience had a deeper meaning. He said, only those who have known the stark terror and have ever conquered it, they can only appreciate the reaction and the strength of Douglas, how he overcome his fear of water. He explains that there is always peace and calmness in death, but it is the fear of death that crippled a person. Here he quotes the words of President Roosevelt, who said, all we have to fear is fear itself. As he had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce. He said, the will to live, it should be always intense. That would surely make you victorious in all the battles of life. As he had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce, he suggests that the will to live this life should be always grown in intense. That will surely tread your way to be the winner in the life. I hope you well understood up to this part. Must watch the next part in the coming video. Thank you for watching the video.